Alright, if you're like me and you've been trying to beat this guy for over an hour, I think I've figured out a technique that seems to be pretty effective against him, especially at an earlier level like me. Now what we're going to be doing is forcing him into bindings. Now, bindings happen, whenever you lock blades with an enemy and, you either fail the binding or you win the binding in which you stun the other individual. Now, the reason why I figured out bindings were pretty effective against this guy is because they're fairly risk-free and that you really don't take any damage. Because worst case scenario, if you fail a binding, is he just pushes you off or he strikes you with the pommel, stuns you, but that in and of itself doesn't do any damage. Now, what we're aiming at is for successful bindings, obviously, but if you do a successful binding, he's vulnerable for about just under 2 seconds, I think is what I found. And now I've tried doing both cuts and thrusts with him. I assumed thrusts would be more effective against an opponent in armor, kind of aiming at the armpits or the neck, or more exposed areas that aren't covered up by plate, steel plate. But I know there's a technique called half sorting, and I think half sorting is in this game, in which you grab the end of the blade to try to get more point control. And I know it's a historical technique. People in HEMA, historical European martial arts, train for techniques like that that come from the manuals and treatises. But as far as I know, I can't do half sorting. But as far as cuts versus thrusts, I've tried both of them. They both do damage. I'm not sure which one is more effective. But either way you go, they will damage him. And as you can see, my health is still at full strength right here, which shows you don't do any damage. You fail a binding, and I have as you can see, failed some bindings here. And I at first I tried to fight him how I normally would, just doing cut, parry, riposte, combat. But I found when he parries your attacks and your ripostes, they are really freaking hard to deal with. At least I can't get the timing right on his ripostes, because every time I would fail it. I think I had a few times where I do it successfully, but I found it to be really freaking hard. I don't know if anybody else had the problem, but maybe it's because I'm just an early level and the timing, like the gap in which they give you to parry, is going to be shorter than, say, if your swordsmanship is higher. I'm not sure. But yeah, this fight goes on for a while here, but this is the only technique I found to where I actually successfully beat him. Like that right there, I can never get the timing right on that that little thrust, riposte he does. But yeah. Well, I actually found this out while fighting this guy. Is that if you enter a bind, you can actually strike him with the pommel if you press the thrust button. I didn't know that. Maybe I'm a noob and I just didn't know that, but serves him right for doing it to you a couple, 10 times or something. Strike him back, whatever. But yeah, this goes on for a while, and I think it's almost done here. It's got a little bit to go. But anyway. Like I said earlier, I found this guy north of Neuhof. He's the Wayfaring Knight, I think is how you pronounce it. And you can actually find 2 different people here who will challenge you. I guess they're randomly generated. One is this guy, who is pretty well, experienced. He looks different. He's got the bassinet faceplate on and all that. And then there's another guy you find who's much less experienced. He has like a stutter. And he's pretty, he's a lot easier to fight, because I think he says oh, my mom told me to get more experience or something. I don't know. But I wanted to beat this guy to get that brigandine. Yeah, you get the brigandine, which is great. Because brigandine, I think, were like a coat of plates, but it's like a fancier coat of plates. I'm not sure. But anyway, that's how you beat the Wayfaring Knight. At least that's how I do it.